What's up, party people? We are live. Listen, we're just figuring out. We had some technical difficulties. Chat needs to relax. You're gonna get an intro video right now. Then our man Billy's gonna join, and we'll have some fun once we figure out this sweet, sweet stuff. And Billy, I can see it in the background, baby. I can see the spreadsheet. We're gonna be good to go. Let's play the video, and then let's get into some So Rare strat.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Mike Zakarian.
What's up, everybody? My apologies for the late start. I was doing another podcast as a guest, and it went a little over, and then we had some technical difficulties. But we are now joined by Billy Top Shot, Mr. Opto God himself. Billy, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Good, man. It's great to be here with my third favorite NFT content producer. Happy to be here, man.
Oh, we got to name. Who are the first two? We got to name the top two.
So you're number 3.
You all right?
Number 2 is myself.
There we go.
And number 1 is Top Shot Tony.
All right, there you go. That's a good rankings. Good rankings. I'll allow it. Dude, I was telling you this via DM. I was excited to have you on only because, well, for lots of reasons. You've come on before. I enjoyed talking to you. I think you were on one of the all-time So Rare heaters of like all time, because there was like a 3 to 4, like not game week. I'm saying week runs. This is like 8 game weeks where every tweet that came out during the rewards, it was like, here are the 42 things I won. What was that like, man? Did you feel like you were also running pure? Like, was it like an incredible run?
So I'm a data guy. I'm a statistics professor. I don't know if you knew that, but and I always take like a data minded approach to everything. I have my own like MR play projections, which I was really into for a while. I throw the link up there. I update them every day. Some people access them.
Yeah.
And and when I got into So Rare, I just loved this game. Like I was a DFS kind of guy way back in the beginning when you didn't have to be a pro to be good at it.
Yeah.
And I used to take a data minded approach back then. And right when I got into it, I was hooked. I was like, oh, I want to get into this. And, we were talking back screen. I used to use roto grinders back in the day, in the early DFS days. And they had these optimizers built in.
Mhm.
And I was just like, oh, I got to build an optimizer for this thing. Like one, I got to build like a projection system, which,
Right.
I love doing that kind of stuff. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to build an optimizer. And it turned out it wasn't quite as hard as I thought it would be. Like I just Googled like how to build a DFS optimizer, and people have put out these YouTube tutorials how to do it.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And I woke up at like 3 a.m. once from my daughter crying and couldn't go to bed. And I was like, all right, I can't go to bed. Maybe I'll try to learn how to do this. And like, I got like a good amount of it done before they woke up at 8 a.m.
That's amazing. So like, talk to it. I guess if someone has never used an optimizer before, give us like the dumb version. Like what does an optimizer do?
Yeah,
I know the answer's optimized, but
well, I mean, it solves a problem, which is, anybody that's played So Rare, it says like, all right, pick your guys for a lineup. You have 110 cap to work with. And you're just looking at all these guys with caps and like, how the hell do you know like who to pick? right?
Right.
Well, what's the best combination? Like, who even adds up to be 110? And are these guys even going to play well or not? So that's the kind of issue that every So Rare player experiences. So this thing, it basically it takes in projections for every player, and even if you have projections for every player, you still don't know. Like, you got to make them work with the 110 cap. There's all
Right.
different combinations of good players you could choose. So the idea is like, what's the best combination of players? And the optimizer goes through like tons and tons and tons of iterations to try to figure out which is the best one.
Yeah. Now, I love the optimizer, but like I haven't used it too much with So Rare, but just the optimizer in general. Like, I love the idea of it because it gives me almost like, okay, if I just press this button, it's going to tell me like the best projected lineup. And what I like about that is it gives me an idea of what like the blueprint of this specific slate is going to look like. And then I can tinker with it a little bit too. Like, okay, well, I'm looking at these projections and I actually like this person's matchup a little bit. So I can tinker a little bit here and then run it again. And how does that adjust things? And I really like that because it allows me to see like, what does the slate look like from a big picture? And then how can I make the adjustments with the cards that I have? And so I was curious, like, how you have used it. Like, have you been by the book where you're like, I run this thing and this is what I'm going with every time? Or are you someone that tinkers along with it?
Sure. So it depends. Like, in my early days when I first developed with it, like, I would tinker a lot.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I had a lot of fun doing it. But lately, so as you know, I started a subscription service to it, which how that all came about just like blew me away how fast and like crazy that all happened. I can get into
Well,
later,
I'll
maybe.
tell you why. It's because you had that 8-week run of those tweets, man. I was like, people were like, I want those rewards.
Yeah, and it's wild because like I don't even know if I really built it for myself. And I think I've always thought in the back of my mind, like JBB has built like an awesome community like around
Yeah.
Momentum Labs. And I had always kind of thought like, like I could build like a data product some point in the future. Like I even talked to him about it, last like probably a year ago. And I don't really remember because everything has happened so fast and crazily. Maybe that's why I kind of put it out there just to like build a little bit of a clout about myself maybe.
Yeah.
But all I know is I was putting those screenshots out there, really good record keeping and everything. And yeah, and before I know it, like by the end of December, I've got like probably like 100 people who have DM'd me being like, "Hey, can I buy this off of you?" And I'm like, "Shit, I guess I should sell this."
Yeah.
And by like February 1st, I was like, had it all put together and people were subscribing. And I think people are doing pretty well. Somebody won first place in limited contender
I saw
the other
that.
week with that.
That's awesome. And I
Two of
think
my subscribers right now are 6th place and 7th place in limited contender.
are they really?
Yeah.
Let's go. I love this too. Like, one, it's good for like community as a whole. These types of things are
Yeah.
really good. But I think it like forces everybody to be better too, and not just like the people who are playing the game. Like, great, you're making more informed decisions when you're buying something or selling something, but also while you're putting your lineup together. But I also think it's good for the other people, not only like making like video content, but also like putting together projection stuff. Like it makes everybody do a little bit better. And I think sometimes when they see a subscription service, whether it's what you're doing, Momentum Labs, So Rare Data, whatever it is, I think people are a little hesitant. They're like, wait, hold on, like money's involved, like why? But because of that, it like forces you to provide a good product too. Like, because I think once money's involved, you're like, oh man, like how has that changed for you now that other people are paying for it? Like, do you find that that's providing, or almost like not stress might not be the right word, but
No, it's the
like
right word.
it is the right word. Yeah. Like, what's that been like for you since starting?
So it's funny. So remember how I said I would tinker a lot back in the day? But ever since I've gotten through, managing these subscribers and making sure, the big thing is to make sure it works for everybody. And
Right.
this is V1. It is a rough early product. Like,
Yeah.
and I had hesitance of even going forward with it. And then, there's that quote by, I think it's Jeff Bezos. And he says, like, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you waited too long to launch.
Yeah.
And so, and I kind of was like, all right, screw it. Let's just go forward with this. And the amount of issues I've run into. So first of all, So Rare has like a huge international audience. So
Yeah.
it's like, it never even like struck me that there would be issues where like one big issue I ran into was international users who use the comma decimal separator. Like my sheet was just breaking for them. So I had to like come up with a whole fix for that.
Oh
And
my
then like,
goodness.
and people are like sending me screenshots of like errors when it breaks. I'm like, all right, cool. Send me a screenshot. Like the error messages are in French. And I'm like, okay, all right, let me Google translate what this means and
That's
see if I can
incredible.
fix it. And it's been wild. So it's been stressful. I mean, I enjoy it, and like I really do enjoy it. It's amazing how much I've learned in the last month. But also, like, I pretty much just like set it and forget it with my lineup. Like, I press run optimizer, like I put that in. I pretty much every week lately. I haven't been doing a lot of tinkering because I've been working with my community a lot.
So why don't we do this right now? Because I think we figured out the share screen, and then I know there's some chat about like how can we access the optimizer. We'll talk about that a little bit towards the end. But I'm fascinated to like what, like I would love to see like what you are doing on your end, just as a user too, not even as like the spreadsheet god, but as like when you run the optimizer, like how you take in that information.
Yeah, sure thing. Let me. Oh boy, what's going on here? Let's see if I can share the screen.
I know it was up there when we were about to go live.
I know, right?
So you should be able to find it.
Definitely.
Also seeing some fun people in the chat. Our man Gnome is in there. We got Sean Grant said the only optimizer I need is to personally stop playing TJ Warren. All right, here we go. I'm gonna pull this up here. We might need you to zoom in a little bit if you can enhance, and then yeah, just kind of like talk us through it.
Is this good right here, or a little more?
Yeah, that's good right there.
That's about as much. So yeah, so basically, yeah, it takes in projections for all players, right? So there's a couple different functions that it starts for people. So one thing, it takes like the entire roster of NBA players. And if you just want to see, so this is what I run and put on Twitter every week, is I just run the optimizer. So this is for, I mean, the All-Star weekend, like we can't get anything from that. So the next game week after that is, I don't know if you guys all saw the announcement. It's a special Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday game week because there's no games Monday through Wednesday. Yep. So I got the data in here for that. So if I hit the run optimizer button, bang. So this tells me the optimal combination of 5 players you can put in under a cap of 110 based on my projections, which is pretty cool.
That is great. And is there like a function I get like, so say I sign up and is there a function that I can like put together just using the gallery that I have?
Yeah, there is, which is awesome. And that's like a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look. So basically I have this sheet right here, my player list. So again, there's some manual effort required by users, quite a bit of manual effort, my subscribers will tell you, but you got to manage these lists yourself.
Right.
So, you know, you got your commons, your limited and rares. Then they automatically get populated into my common, my limited, and my rare tiers. And so let's take a look at like, I don't know, let's take a look at my commons. Okay. So you generally want to take this sheet and sort it first. Custom sort, largest to smallest. So by the projection column. And now these are just my players. So what's the optimal contender lineup that I can put together? Well, you hit run optimizer, and for my personal collection, like this is the best contender lineup I can put together next week.
Glad to see James Wiseman still projecting well, even though it scares the crap out of me.
And so this is what's really cool too. So let's say you really don't like James Wiseman. So I've got this column here where you can either include or exclude players. So like,
I love that.
So if you don't want James Wiseman, you put a no next to him, and then you run it again.
And then I love that. So Sean, who is in the chat, you can just say no to TJ Warren. He's never going to be in your lineup again.
There you go. And there you go. And say there's a guy you really do like, you know, let's say, I don't know, you're really big on Evan Mobley because you just love his matchup that he's got going. And so you can put a yes next to him, and then that'll make sure it includes him in your lineup.
I love that. So, and because one of the things I was talking about earlier on, and I know you mentioned you did that a little bit, so say Mark Williams, we'll just use Mark Williams as an example, is projecting for like 35 points. And you're like, you know what? I think that might be a little bit high for, or the other way. Like, I think Mark Williams has a great matchup. I'm going to say his ceiling is a little bit higher. Can the user on their end like tinker with that a little bit and it will adjust?
You mean like put like the numbers in? They can't edit the numbers, but they can, you know, do the yes or no for players.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah. Anybody can do the yes or no for players. Like, so for example, you know, of course, Gordon Hayward was actually projected in one of my rare optimal lineup,
Yeah.
and of course I was like, hell no, am I playing Gordon Hayward? So I marked the biggest N next to him I could, and then he of course exploded this week. But whatever.
Ah, man, I was looking at that. I ended up watching that game, which I don't know why, but I watched a lot of that Hornets Hawks game, and Gordon Hayward had like 16 real points in the first quarter, I think it
Uh,
was, and I was like, "Good lord, man,
and I
that
saw
dude."
his cap at 20. I was like, he's bound, he's due, he's gonna have a game. I was like, but I can't do it. I've been burned too many times lately by him.
Well, right, it was one of those things too, where it's like a capital, like he's probably not going to get less than 20, but I was like, "There's no way he's going to hit like 40," and then yeah, he's like, "How about 50, dude?" Uh,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. So how have like what's been some of the like feedback you've been getting for like users? Like what have been one of some of like the pros that they've like really enjoyed like
You
using the
know,
product?
one thing that they love is probably the most is just the sense of community that exists in the channel. And like,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm this like, generator of vibes, like, people like you are or
Yeah.
JBB, like, but like people love the community and they're all chatting all the time in the Discord and they're having a good time and, giving each other tips and stuff. So I honestly, I think that's the thing people like most,
Yeah.
but of course, having good like projections and ways to see who fits together and tinkering with the yeses and nos. I think that's probably actually what people like most.
No, but I think there is something to it. I mean, there is when you have access to the same information and you're like, wow, it's spitting this out, and you're like, ah, man, oh, well, I love this. I would have never considered this guy, or vice versa, where you're like, I know it's telling me to play this guy, but I don't trust this guy or I don't trust this number or whatever. How when it comes to projections, and I know you probably don't want to reveal too much of the sauce. But how like are you doing? Because I know there's a couple of different ways. Like, are you doing some aggregating from like some other projections that you see as well as your own? Yeah, that's kind of how you've gone
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. So I've got this one base projection source that I think is really strong, and then I just do these other manipulations on them.
Mhm.
Like, and this is where I think mine really stand out above the rest. Like, for example, so next game week, like I'm projecting Anthony Davis to score 73 so rare points.
Wow.
So that's on his rare though. If we just look at like
Right.
base, like 66.8 for Luca, I get 66.8 projected points for Luca. Now most places are not projecting him that much. If you look at like Sorare data, Momentum Labs, other places, mine tend to be a little bit higher than most for the high end players, and they tend to be a bit more spot on. Because the big thing that my projections account for is player variability.
Okay.
So I mean I don't know how in tune to this you are, but like just like in the old DFS days, like variability is what you need to be successful in DFS.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You need high variable players. So and I actually have a sheet that I give to my subscribers where I have every player's variability based on their game logs. And so that way people can kind of think about what players are good long-term purchases versus not.
Yeah, and that's honestly why I was kind of asking about the tinkering of it, because that was one of the things that I loved about an optimizer was just being like instead of using base, I'm like, all right, give me ceiling projections. Give me like what are like the monsters, because that's like
Yeah.
ultimately what you need to win, right? Unless you're just trying to ship
Yeah.
tier 4s week to week. I'm
Yep.
like, cool, that's fine. I think there's value in doing that too. But what's enticing to me is like, I want to get a tier 1. How do I get a tier 1? It's by the people with the highest ceilings hitting that like outlier performance, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And also, like, I think one of the toughest questions that probably regular Sorare managers have is like, who's a better play? Jason Tatum on a 1 game week or
Right.
Kristaps Porzingis on a 2 game week?
How do you
And
how do you approach that?
so basically, like in my projections, I have factored that in. So that actually goes into like I said, I get my base projections, but then I do some manipulations on them that go into this. And basically, I calculate. I go back through 2 seasons of game log data. I pair every pair of values up, find what the maximum value of that would be, because that would be their so rare score, and then
Yeah.
I find out how variable those scores are from the average score, and then I
Wow.
use that as like a multiplier. And then I do the same thing for every trio of games over the last couple seasons.
Wow.
So it's and I think that's a really like in my mind I was like, dude, this would be the ideal way to view this. And then I went through and I made it. So
That's
I didn't know if I'd be able to, but I did.
that's incredible. Because I agree. I think that's one of the harder things to hammer is like the variability between
Yeah,
somebody with
like
1 game or 2 games. And And
Like
go
Fred
ahead.
VanVleet with 3 games is projected more than LaMelo Ball with 2 games. Like that's kind of interesting because on a game-to-game basis, you'd rather if it was 1 game, you would want to play LaMelo. But it turns out like my projections would tell you like in any 3-game stretch, Fred will not
Yeah.
always, but most often. Probably not even that most often. It's a small difference there, but is a better play than LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, and because I think like I've almost had this hard instance, this hard rule of just like like I was just talking about with the ceiling. And so if you're like John Morant with 1 game or Fred VanVleet with 2 games, we'll say, I'm just taking Ja because I feel like Ja's ceiling's higher. But having something like this, it's like actually it's not. Like it's Fred. I know you didn't use Ja as the example there, but like it's Fred higher. Just having that information is pretty helpful because I do think it's a lot of for most people, it's a lot of guesswork. You're just being like,
Yeah.
well, this dude's a superstar who has a superstar ceiling. And you're like, yeah, Fred VanVleet's annoying right now in the Raptors, but he still can get a high 50 score,
Even 60s he's put up a few times in January. Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Mike in the chat. I don't know if Mike's already in there and he's just asking he's saying good things like, wow, we really are getting our money's worth hearing that description. But I actually, Mike, I don't think he's asking how big is the community. Let's talk a little bit about that. Cause I know you had like it was almost like a soft launch where you're like, we can't, I cannot open this up to thousands of people. So like how has that process been like opening it up and like what number are you at? What number are you hoping to hit?
Sure. So, well, actually, I have a cap of, and this is like a philosophical thing, which is like with Sorare data, right? For example, or Momentum Labs, like any projection service, if you have 1,000 people using those same projections, like what's your ceiling of finishing? Like if there's 1,000 people accessing projections, like even if those projections are spot on, like you are probably going to finish what 500th.
Yeah.
So that's tough. So for that reason, I kind of realized like if I really want this to be a valuable service, it has to be restricted in how many people can access it. And it's not fun, like I get that, but I do think like that's one way to make it really valuable. So that's why I've capped it basically long term at 1% of the entrants in the limited champion contest.
Oh, wow.
So I'm never going to allow more subscribers than that. That way, basically, like if my projections are spot on, like, and you finish the worst out of all my projectors, you'll still finish in the top 1% of limited champion. So that's my theory. That's kind of my idea, my philosophy. And so now that cap is 82 people. I'm not allowing any more than 82 people until the number of entrants goes up. And further than that, I want to see them expand their ranges of prize pools too before I open it up to more people. Because I don't want to I want to make sure like people are guaranteed the ability to get good rewards if the projections are good, which I think they are.
Yeah, Ghost in the chat says no oversupply in Billy's world. I like that. You're a big fan of the supply. I agree. Yeah, honestly, that's way better and way better for your community than what I thought you were going to say, because I was just like, it's hard to manage a really big group of people. So I was like, that's a digestible number of a test run.
That's why I haven't like pumped it. Like I'm not on Twitter every day be like, hey, subscribe to my service. I've only said like one time on Twitter, like, hey, here's my service, my price. Like one time. I pinned the tweet, but because and there are days where like people will hit me up and be like, hey man, I can't onboard anybody till tomorrow at the earliest, just because like I also got a full-time job and 2 kids and other stuff going on. And I want to set my own Sorare lineups. But right now I'm at 68 subscribers. So and my cap is 82, so it's getting pretty close. And I will say my early adopter discounts ended yesterday, but I did tell Mike, I was like, I actually think I'm just going to extend it one more day. So if anybody here does want to subscribe, I do have my early adopter prices in my Twitter. So if you want to check those out, shoot me a DM. Then, if you get in by the end of the day today, you can get those early adopter prices.
I'll drop a link to your Twitter into the chat. It'll be in the show notes as well after the show, but I'll drop that in there in case people want to reach out. I wanted to ask too, because I know you referenced this a little bit, how you're just kind of like plug and play now. Have you, since you started opening it up where you now are managing, other people's expectations a little bit too, have you noticed your performance, your individual performance come down, or have you still been crushing?
It's definitely come down. Yeah, it's definitely gonna like, and it's just because I don't get the time to really tinker it. Like, and I'll do set it and forget it a lot, like I said, and then I'll look like 20 minutes after, like I'm like, why the hell did
I
I start that guy? What was I thinking?
Dude, that's me with Live Before Lock, where I'm just like, I'm just saying so much information that I'm like, whatever lineup I set at like 4 or 3 is probably what I'm going to land on because it's like I have too much is going on. I can't really like figure out what's the best for my lineup. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was curious if that was going to make it. It was going to make it a little bit harder.
And I think it's fine to set lineups early in the day, by the way. Like, I think
Yeah,
it's actually a better idea. I think people like they overreact to like, oh, like D'Angelo Russell is out or whoever, or Mike Conley is out. I got to get Jordan McLaughlin into my lineup now. Like, I think those are like the worst kinds of decisions to make. They backfire all the time. It happened with me with Blake Wesley last week.
oh yeah,
Uh, and like, if you set your lineup as 4, like you have a good lineup of healthy guys, like you know that they kind of produce. Like you put some thought into it. Like just stick with that lineup unless
yeah.
someone's injured. Then pull them out and put somebody new in. But that's kind of my philosophy. I tell my subscribers that, and I believe in it pretty
Yeah, I've
strongly.
been trying to like whether it's the I tinkered this week because of the Denver situation when they like ruled out half their starting lineup. I was like, okay, maybe let's who can this really benefit? I was like, well, and honestly, it didn't work out super well. It did with Christian Brown crushed, but Michael Porter Jr. Didn't get there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But like in those scenarios where I'm like, okay, half the starting lineup. But if it's just like one guy, I'm always like one guy's missing the game. I'm always like, this actually helps the star on the team more than it helps. Like if Jamal Murray's out, it just means Jokic is probably scoring more points, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean whoever the
Right.
backup point guard is going to
Right.
crush.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
uh,
So I can run this thing for for my champion lineup
yeah,
too. And then it'll automatically slot like an MVP in there, whoever is like the highest projected player. And there, like I said, this is an early Friday. Like it won't surprise me if something happens here a lot. So it puts Luca in twice, which is kind of annoying, which you obviously
okay.
can't do. So you just have to mark him as a no. And so he's just your MVP.
Okay.
But now, so I did figure I'd just give people a little clue on who are some good players to go for if they want to start looking ahead to game week 36.
How have you been approaching the marketplace, by the way? Are you someone who scooped a bunch of cards early on and you're like, this is my roster, this is what I'm rocking with, and then whatever rewards, or have you been dabbling a little bit in the marketplace?
I was, I think more the beginning. Like I got a lot of guys that I really liked, and now I keep a tab on the variability, and I'm starting to, I hope everybody here is starting to think towards like the playoffs
Yeah.
and think towards the off season. I didn't play so rare soccer, or football, but I think a lot of people talk about like in the off season there's a big dip, and we've already seen the prices start to come down a little bit for that.
Yeah.
So I
One thing
think I am starting to think about that. Like I have 134 limited cards, which is way too many.
Yeah.
But I win 20 limited rewards every week, so
Yeah.
So I'm trying to really like think about how to whittle that down to guys, one, that are gonna like have good playoff runs, and 2 guys that like I actually want next season, and not just next season, but for the long term, and start building that XP so maybe I can max them out specifically for young guys.
I think that's really sharp thinking about both the playoffs and the young guys moving forward. One thing I will say that they noticed with baseball that didn't happen with soccer, but it seems like with baseball they really limited. They're like, all right, we're not going to run as many auctions anymore, and because of that, there wasn't a ton of like secondary stuff, but it prices didn't really dip because it wasn't like cards kept coming out. Soccer, I don't think they saw that as much. I think they did see more of a dip. I think you're right though. As we get towards, especially with all the Top Shot people that came over, we're like, off season, man, got to be ready.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I like that playoff approach though, of just trying to target some of those guys. Because one thing I will give credits to Sorare for, like seeing what they're doing with the All-Star weekend, even though it's a little finicky, like trying to make lineups for that. Clearly, they are prepared to run stuff out for these NBA moments, right? Or these NBA like times of the year. So when the playoffs come, I imagine they are going to have some playoff specific contests. So I think that's a really sharp way.
Yeah. So like I've already I went through my rare roster. I'm like, all right, who are the guys that like I need for the postseason and beyond? Like, and I put Ys next to them, Ns next to the other guys. So like pretty much any time like in a coming game week, if any of these guys with an Ns like pump, like I'm looking to sell them off into that.
Yeah. I think it's important to have like a good feel for your gallery for those moments too, of just being like, okay, now like this thing's bumping. Let's get off of, like, now's a good off ramp for this card.
Yeah.
Noam was asking about the XP a little bit, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about this. He was saying, can you guys explain why it's good to save cards for XP for next season? I'm confused by what's happening with the XP.
So you really got to think long term, I think, about the XP. So we know that every season you get a 5% XP boost for cards in the current season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once this season's over, we go into next season, our cards are going to have a 5% drop, right? So, and that encourages people to want to buy the new cards. So for next season, like I don't own like an Anthony Edwards card rare right now, right? But I want one at some point. So next season, I'm going to want to buy an Anthony Edwards off of an auction for next season rather than buying a this season one off the marketplace, because I'll get that 5% boost for the current season.
Yeah.
But long term, but then after that season, that 5% boost goes away. So a guy like, for example, like Luka, I hope to have him for, many, many, many years. So if I always keep him and just keep building, even if he's at a 4% boost next year, but the new ones are at a 5% boost, it's good to keep that 4% boost, keep building it up, because the year after and year after and year after and year after, I'm going to have a better Luka.
Right. That's why these training lineups, which are the most infuriating part of the entire game experience, is so important, because you do need that XP long term. You want it to be so that I don't feel the need to get a second season or third season, whatever season we're in, buy a card of that, because you're like, it doesn't matter. My boost that I've already acquired through the XP cancels out the 5% of the current season. And I agree with Noam. It is a little confusing when people are talking about it. So I'm glad Noam asked that question to talk about it. But just put your lineups, put your cards in training lineups if you're not using them, please.
It's really important for the young guys, like Chris Paul, for example. Chris Paul, if he gets 10%, I don't know. I guess at that point it doesn't really matter. But you can sell him, now if you don't want to kind of live with him, and then buy him back next season, because he's not going to be good for that many more seasons. You're never going to max out his XP.
Right. Yeah, and that's why, isn't it locked at a 20%? Yeah, that's the maxing out. But again, you're losing the current boost that your card has right now. You're losing that 5% or 15 if it's a rare, whatever it is. Once you move into the next season. Billy, one other thing, and then we can wrap in a little bit here. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about, though, because you mentioned this with the rewards, so I feel like we could have a fun convo about this. When you were saying until they beef up the rewards a little bit or diversify the rewards, what does that look like to you in a perfect world? Is that more contests with more rewards? Are the rewards themselves no longer cards? What is something that you would like to see the Sorare NBA crew do?
I think both of what you said is great. So I think as more people get into the contest, I do think you're going to have to widen the pool. So that's what I was talking about for my subscribers, and my cap for subscriptions. Everyone's talking about the idea of adding Ethereum as a prize and stuff like that. I do think that's going to matter at some point, because as people, at some point, 3 years from the road, I'm going to have every rare card. So at the point of when I start winning them as rewards, I'm just going to start selling them, and that's going to send the prices down. If everyone starts selling all the rewards they have. So I do think things like Ethereum will have to happen at some point in the future. Not now. I think it's pretty safe right now. And then you had another question. Other contests, yeah, I think that's really cool too. I have a lot of trust in them. I think they're doing things really well. And somebody in my channel was or people were having discussions about whether they're doing things right or wrong in terms of supply and managing all that kind of stuff. And I was saying, they do things pretty well, and they have a lot more at risk of getting that wrong, that very sensitive balance wrong. They have a lot more at risk of that than I have at risk of them getting it wrong. And they seem like really competent people. So I just kind of, price, two things could happen that would send me concerned. If prices go down, which has happened, but also more importantly, the number of users in contests go down. If both of those things happen, and I don't really see a course correction, then I'd be concerned. But I'm not. I don't know. I'm not very concerned. I think
that's the number I've been paying. That's the number I've been paying attention to the most. Is how many people are signing up for contests, and that's gonna fluctuate game week to game week. If we have an early start, I imagine around All-Star Weekend, it seems to. We'll see some numbers change a little bit, but as long as those numbers are consistent, that makes me That makes me happy. And I will say, like, anytime it seems like they've rocked the boat with a decision or something, they seem to just be in tune with the community and are responding to it. Maybe not changing it to like exactly what you want, but they seem to be pretty responsive to stuff. I agree with you. I've had listen, it's still early. I still will always have my guard up about everything now after other experiences I've had. But it does seem like they've got their head on their shoulders. And I thought you put they have way more risk than I do. So they are clearly working on getting it right. I'm excited. I'm actually going to meet some of them at All-Star game weekend.
Oh, cool.
This weekend. I'm excited to see to kind of like pick their brains on some stuff. But I'm with you, man. I do think at some point Ethereum or USD, whatever, there has to be some rewards like that. And dude, just more contests. I want more contests. I don't want to enter 35 training lineups. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I like having the underdog was fun this week and maybe that's because my lineup's crushing right now, but
mixed tier contests are really cool ideas too, because like the higher tier players, they get more of a boost in them. So it really gives, advantage to, the higher tier players, but not so much of an advantage. I love the idea of mixed tier contests.
Yeah. And I think it's going to come have you messed around with football at all on the football side of things?
No.
So I've been doing, I think we did talk about this offline actually. I've done, I've purchased one Premier League card, one limited card, and then have won one. But the fact that it's like, one limited card and 4 common cards, right? And then if you own 15 limiteds, they're like, you can't do that contest anymore. I'm like, this is brilliant. This is like brilliant onboarding of like, I'm not up against Wales right now who have dropped massive bags. This is clearly a new contest. And then when you move up a level, it's like 4 limiteds and 1 common, right? So you're still like, it's just a natural progression. And I do hope they come like into the world of that, like in the NBA side of things with those type of mixed contests. Cause I agree. I think more contests in general, and then more variability with the contests would go quite a long way, I think.
Yeah. But I like Noam's comment in the chat about Ben Simmons too.
Because Jeb was like, can we get a rant? And then Noam says Ben Simmons' stock is going up. He used to have 4 field goal attempts per game, but now with KD and Kyrie out, it'll go to 4.6. I was just talking as a guest on another show about this, like literally an hour ago. The Ben Simmons stuff has gotten so bad that I just like feel bad now. Like
I want to like Ben Simmons.
I know.
I really do. I loved his game before. Like I really like a good two-way basketball player, and he was that.
Yeah, it's bumming me out. It makes me sad. I want him to just be in a situation like if he doesn't like basketball, Ben, you just stop playing, man. Like if you hate it, we've all had jobs we've hated. It's okay. Go do something that's gonna make you more fulfilled. Who's
that big man for Indiana? No, not Hibbert. The big man for Indiana, like he signed like a huge contract, and then like 1 year into it, he's like, "Nah, I'm just gonna like leave and like retire."
Not Lance Stevenson, but it was
no, he's a big man. He's a center. He's like really promising, like a shot blocker. I can't get Roy Hibbert out of my head.
It was that same time frame. I know somebody's gonna know in the chat. God, I hate that I'm blanking on it right now.
But it feels like Ben Simmons is like, trending towards that.
It does. It really does. And I mean, it's weird now that he's playing like 12 minutes a game. Like when everybody got traded, I was like, all right, well, at least Ben Simmons will play like 40 minutes. Larry Sanders. There it is. Snoopaloop.
Larry Sanders. Yeah.
That's who it was. And then there was like a rumor he was going to come back with Charlotte or something like that. And then it didn't end up happening. But all right, Billy, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So I'm going to share your link into the
Can we do a giveaway?
Oh yeah,
we I got a couple Sorare cards I can give away. I told my subscribers that I would give one away specifically for them. Could we do a couple, like one for anybody in the chat and one just for my subscribers, or just like honor system?
Yeah, you're gonna have to do honor system though. So like no one. All right, so the first one we'll just do.
If someone gets in, then I just won't give it to them, and I'll do a giveaway in my channel later.
Yeah, so if somebody gets it, we'll do the first one for. Actually, let's do the first one just for your subscribers.
All right, cool.
And then we'll so for the first one, only do this if you subscribe. If you didn't do it, I swear to God, we'll come for you. You just gotta like the stream, subscribe, put #Billy. Only do it if you're a subscriber. And then what we'll do after, we'll do a separate one for everybody.
All right, cool. I've got some good dupe moments I want to say down here in the limited tier. Let's do like a limited, like Tyus Jones. I kind of like Tyus Jones actually. So yeah, give away Tyus Jones limited.
Tyus Jones is a good one too, especially once his cap comes down a little, and then we get a job missing a game.
That's why I like him. That's why I
Yeah.
like him. Exactly.
Those are good guys to have. And for a while, it was like the Embiid center backup, the backup centers too, like the Montrezl Harrell. But Embiid's like sneaky kind of playing all the games now.
Yeah. And I got a couple campaigns for that same reason too.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed. I got a couple Cole Anthonys if Markelle Fultz missed the game. I'll give away a Cole Anthony too afterwards. So we'll do a Tyus Jones and then a Cole Anthony.
People are asking, what do you have to be subscribed to Billy Zopto? Did you come up with a name for it? Do you have like a
No, Billy's so rare lineup optimizer.
Yeah.
I went so fast with this. It was insane.
I like it. And then we'll do a second one after. I love the people who aren't subscribed though are putting in other things. Like Jeb put in silly. He put in hashtag Bum Simmons. We have hashtag Ben Simmons. That's good. We get the gritty. Yeah. All right, we'll spin this thing. So this is just I feel like the chat has held up to the honor system. There's 12 entrants and 37 watch.
Spin her up.
All right, here we go. Let's spin this thing. If you win, hit up Billy on Twitter or in the Discord. Here we go. Shindro 69, baby.
Shindro, hit me up on Discord.
All right, now this one's for everyone. Now like the stream, subscribe, and it's still Billy. Hashtag Billy, put it in there. Everybody put in hashtag Billy. This will be the second one.
Yep. And this will be for a Cole Anthony.
Yeah, let me drop your Twitter into the chat one more time, too, so people can go follow you and find you and then give you their money. But, dude, thank you for being down for this, man. I always enjoy talking to you. You're fun. And
same, man. Same.
It's been cool watching you. I think I was telling JBB this. The more people building tools like this, the better. And like, it's just like better for the ecosystem. It's better for everybody. More projections, the better. And like, I like that the projections aren't the same all the time. Like your projections might look different. It's just good. And like, if you subscribe to multiple things, it's good to see that and being like, oh, okay, well, we see a higher ceiling. You can either use it to make your point or to not make your point. And I like that.
Yeah. And while this thing is spin up, I do have a lot of like improvements that I'm going to try to run too. You know, like this is V1. Like by next season, I've got a lot of thoughts that I want to do. Like I'm going to move it from an Excel spreadsheet to like a self-contained web app. I see Stefano, hashtag Billy in the chat. He's actually working with me on some of this. I owe you an email, by the way, Stefano. And yes. Right, so I'm going to I'm going to create like a self-contained web app, which will like, you know, kind of keep the projection streaming in. It'll auto import all the users' collections, so they don't have to manage it by hand all the time. I want to bring pricing data in through the Sorare API. I've just started to learn like this week how to use the Sorare API.
There you go.
Build compatibility for like the non-flagship contests, like right now it only works for contender and champion contests.
Oh, I got you.
So a lot of features that I do want to build out. So I'm pretty excited about doing that for next season. Yeah,
you're going to have to hit me up when you get the underdog builder because I'm an underdog maxi now. That seems to be the only contest I can freaking excel in is just the garbage pail boys.
I'm smashing a couple contests this week. I'm in like 23rd place in rare contender, I think.
Oh,
and
nice.
I still got I got a lot of upside left too, which I'm wicked pumped about. So I don't know if I'll get top 3, but
that's awesome. I'm right now. I think I'm in 65th in the underdog one. I had Blake Griffin, who's done, but he got like that 41 bomb. And then I still have Gabe Vincent and Branham who are playing tonight, and their starters are out. So they already had a good game, but they could get some upside. Shit, I'm forgetting who Jabari Walker from the Blazers, who was fine. He got 18. But I have Wiseman tonight. So like I still am in 65th with only 4 of my 5 guys rolling. So I'm hoping I get a Wiseman ceiling game.
I like actually Jeb Bush's comment too. Yeah.
Can you create something that says on my left so I never have to log in again? All right, here we go. Let's spin this thing. Last call. Like the stream. Subscribe at hashtag Billy. And which one is this? Did you say which one? This one?
This is the Cole Anthony Limited.
This is for Cole Anthony Limited card here. Yeah, Mike is the Rudy of So Rare. Yeah, we're the same size too. I think I'm pretty much the same size as Rudy. A little bit thinner though. All right, here we go. For the winner. Who's it going to be? Remember, shoot Billy at Billy Top Shot on Twitter. Shindro, no, we got to spin it again. We spin it again. No 2 times.
All right, sounds good.
Shindro, that was great.
Reroll.
That was great. Here we go. Shinro's gonna be so pissed. Yeah, people are mad. People are mad. All right. Oh God, is it Gonchalo? Gonchalo? Or is it? I don't know if that means a soft C or hard C. Let me know how to pronounce that. I always hate when I mispronounce names. So Silva with the big W here. Let me know who you are in the chat. DM at Billy Top Shot. There you go. Look at Shindro. Shindro's a good man. So I didn't want to participate in the second one anyways. Oh, wait, did I crush it? Gonchalo? Let's go. Let's go. All right, Billy, dude, thank you so much for doing this, man. I appreciate it. Not only were you flexible because I was too hungover to do it last week, I think, and then, and then this week I pushed you back 10 minutes out of the blue. So I appreciate you being flexible. And I hope, listen, I hope I get another screenshot this week on Twitter with all the rewards you won.
All right, dude.
All right, we out, guys.